I know that we've talked a little bit about this week about using different words so that we can use our conversational English and put together good sentences when we're talking with other people. Does anybody remember what this word means? It's a verb, and it's actually a type of word. Does anybody remember what that word means?
Action verb?
Good, it's an action word, so it's when you do an action. So if I clap my hands together, that would be an action. If I jump up and down, that would be an action word. So could I have a couple people give me some examples of any verb that you want, any verb you can think of?
Fly.
Fly, very good. What about if I had already done this? When I went to the chair and I sit in the chair, what if I had already done it? How could we say that word? If I had done it in the past. Sat, very good. So instead of sit, we can say sat. And I'm going to use a verb in my sentence. I am cold. Does anybody know what the verb is in my sentence? I am cold. This one's a little bit tricky. Am, very good. I'm going to put am in its own little column over here. We're going to go back to that in a second. Does anybody see anything different? We're going to try to label our categories. Does anybody see, excuse me, not different, similar? I know we talked about similar yesterday when we talked about looking alike. When you look like someone, you look similar. Does anybody remember what that means from yesterday? If you look alike.
Almost the same.
Almost the same, perfect. Almost the same, but not quite the same. Almost the same. So do you see any similarities within these words that are different from these words? What do you think we could kind of give this category? And a category is this group of words. What do you think we could name this category if we're talking about types of verbs? Present tense? Good, present tense. I think we've talked about that a little bit before. So present. And what does that word present mean? Anybody remember? Present. If it's present, it's happening right now. Okay? So if I say I sit, I'm doing that right now. When I go over here and I say I sat, that means it already happened. What could we call that if it already happened?
In the past.
In the past. Very good. So we could call these verbs past tense. And over here when I gave you my sentence, I am cold. That was happening right now, so we could say it's in the present. But this word actually comes from the verb to be. And that's going to be the verb we talked about today. It's a state of being verb. Can people say that with me? State of being?
State of being.
Very good. And we're going to call this an irregular verb. And what was an irregular verb? I know we talked about that. Does anybody remember? Irregular. What does that word mean? It doesn't mean alike. It means, what's the opposite of alike? Different. A helper. We call it a helping verb. Can people say that with me? Helping verb. Good. So we use it as a helping verb. And then we also have another verb in our sentence. In this sentence, our other verb is thinking. One clue that you can use when you're talking about helping verbs is if you see a verb with an ing ending, you can look for a helping verb. What does it mean to look for? I know we talked about our idioms yesterday. What does it mean to look for something? Does anybody remember? Try to find. Very good. So when we see that ing, we can try to find our helping verb. And we found our helping verb, am. Very good. We're going to go over this little chart I have. And it's all about the verb to be. This is our verb, to be. We have our little v for verb. Okay? And we're going to talk about all the different ways that we can use our verb. Our first singular, that means we're talking about one person. First means one. And singular means one. So we're talking about a single person. Okay? So one person. When I say I, I'm talking about me. That's just one person. I can say I am, just like my sentence, I am cold. If I talk about it in the past, I can make my sentence, I was cold. Okay? Then we go to our second person. If I'm talking about you, okay, that's just one person, so that's singular. Singular means one person. Okay? I can say, you are cold. I can also say, if you were cold in the past, I could say, you were cold. We can go through this for all of our different things. If I'm talking about he, she, or it, I can say he is cold or he was cold. If we're talking about more than one person, we call that plural. That means there's more than one person. So we can say we. If we talk about we, that means we're more than one person. So if I talked about Andrea and myself, that's we. There's more than one person. There are two people. So we can say we are or we were. So now we have these words up here, and we're going to try to give them category titles, just like we did with our other categories. Could anybody use some of the words that we have in our review over here to figure out if we're talking about these now? This is happening in the now. Will we talk about a verb, irregular, past tense, or present tense if it's happening right now? Which one do you think we would use? Present tense. Present tense, very good. So we'll label our title, present tense. This is our category title. What about if it already happened? Past tense, great job. Past tense. Now we're going to continue with that verb, to be, and we're going to use the past tense form. So we're going to focus on was and were. I have a little worksheet here. I'm going to go over the first one so I can show you what we're going to do, and then you're going to get a chance to do it by yourself. You don't have to write anything yet, so we don't need our pens yet. The first one says, the children blank playing outside. When I say blank, that just means we don't know what goes there yet. So the children blank playing outside. I have to decide whether I want to use was or were. So I'm going to use my chart to help me. If it talks about the children, I know that that's using more than one person. That's a group of people. So it's going to be in the plural, so it's somewhere around here. Another way I could say the children is I could say they. Instead of saying the children, I could say they. So I find they on my chart, and I go over to my past tense, and I see that I would find were. So I could fill in my blank, and we'll see if it sounds right. The children were playing outside. Does that sound right? Yeah, that does sound right. Let's try number 2. The boys blank playing baseball earlier. So I go back to my chart and I think about the boys. Well, that's not just one person, so I know it's not singular. So it's more than one person, we go to plural. Another way I could say the boys is they. They're a group of people. So I again could say they were playing baseball earlier. Great job. I'm going to hand out a couple cards here, and they have the word were and the word was on them. When we read over these next ones, we're not going to write them down, but we're going to hold up which card we think goes in the blank. Number 4, who'd like to read that for me? Want to go around the circle?
My mother blank visiting yesterday.
Good. How about you hold up your card? Go through. You can use our chart to figure out whether you're talking about one person or more than one person, and then you can figure out which word to use. Good. Very good. Number 5.
They blank going to the class.
Good. Hold up your card. Which one do you think? Was or were? Good. And can somebody explain to me why we would use that word were in that sentence? Everybody had the right answer there. Why would we use were? Can you explain it to me using our chart or using some of our words that we talked about? Why do you think? When we talk about they, is they more than one person? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they is more than one person. So we find, what word do we use to say more than one person?
Plural.
Plural. Good. Let's all say that together. Plural.
Plural.
Plural. Good. So we talk about the plural. So they blank going with us. When we talk about the plural, we find they and we go over to were. Great job. What I want you to do when you create this sentence is tell me something about what you used to do, because we're talking about the past, when you lived in your own country. So I told you yesterday or the day before that I'm from Delaware. So since I'm not from another country, I'm just from Delaware, I'm going to tell you something about when I used to live in Delaware. So I'm going to say, over the holidays, I was in Delaware. Okay, so over the holidays, I was in Delaware. Then I'm going to say, my family and I were excited to see each other. So I use both forms. Tell us something about when you lived in India.
I was in India last time.
Good. So you were in India last time. Last month or last year?
Last month.
Last month you were in India. Very good
Last
sentence.
year Christmas.
And for Christmas last year. So everybody did a great job today. I want you to do one more thing for me. Today during the rest of class, I want you to try to use was or were correctly in a sentence. And if you get a chance to speak some English after you leave class today, I want you to try to use it again.